Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's lecture, inshallah, will be about perfect tenses in English language. The main objectives of our lecture today is to understand time, relationships, and to learn how perfect tenses relate to specific points in time, to express past actions with present relevance in order to use present perfect tense to describe past actions with present relevance. The third objective, to describe duration and continuity using present perfect continuous and past perfect continuous to describe ongoing actions. And another point, which is showing past actions before other past actions in order to use past perfect tense to show sequence of events in the past. Also, we have another objective, to master perfect tenses in communication in order to use perfect tenses accurately to convey ideas, experiences, and information in written and spoken English. The key points or the key terms that we are going to focus on in our lecture today is here. The first one is present perfect tense. This is expressed by, this is present perfect, past perfect, of course. So present perfect tense is here related to present perfect using have or has, of course, with time adverbs like already, yet, etc. Continuous tenses, we can have, of course, that's present perfect continuous or past perfect continuous tenses in order to, of course, use here to describe also certain duration of action in time, period of time, that is say, or point of time as well, using, of course, have been or has been or had been as well as auxiliaries with the, sometimes ing form, since they are continuous. Past perfect tense is, here to describe sometimes also sequences of time in the past, or even that is say using, of course, in the past, I mean using had, that is, and in addition to time adverbs like before or after, okay, or these what we mean by subordinators sometimes, because they are used in perfect tense or sometimes in that is complex sentence. Time and sequence, time relationships, also adverbs such as before, after, recently, since, for, okay. Temporal clauses like when, while, sequences, of course, sequencing events, first, next, etc. Action and relevance, here duration, continuity, present relevance, connection to current situation. So to start our lecture, we here inshallah going to explore the present perfect and present perfect continuous, past perfect and past perfect continuous tenses together, which help express, of course, actions or states in relation to specific points in time. We'll cover the formation, usage, and key differences between these tenses, as well as common time markers and adverbs that help clarify their use. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to use perfect tenses correctly and to improve your communication and storytelling skills. There are, of course, some main topics of the lecture here we are going to focus on and go through. One is the understanding present perfect and present perfect continuous tenses. Here we'll discuss, of course, generally the present perfect tense and, of course, the formation of this tense. The formation of this tense is, we use, of course, have, has, okay, plus past participle that, depends on the subject, if it is singular or plural, or I. So the subject is plural or I, we use have, then plus followed by past participle, that is verb 3. And if the subject is singular, we use has. Singular, of course, we use he or she, or it, or any singular noun, okay, we use, of course, has plus past participle. This is the rule. Now about the usage, now it is used for actions or states that started in the past and have relevance to the present, that still continues to the present, that we have, duration of time, let's say, or to discuss actions, as we said, or say started in the past and still, relevant to the present. For example, we can say she has visited Paris several times. She has visited Paris several times. The action of visiting Paris started in the past and has relevance to the present. She may continue to visit in the future. So this is what we mean by relevance to the present. For also we can have let's say another example, let's say, about this action or this type of tense. They have known each other since childhood. They have known each other since childhood. Look at this here. I want to say something, emphasize an idea, that when we talk about she, we said she has visited as singular. We have has plus past participle visited. And here we have this plural form, that is they, the second sentence. Example started with they, that's the plural form, and here followed by have. They have known each other since childhood. And we have, of course, since indicates that the time, is since childhood, from the childhood, that is to say. And we have known. Known is the past participle of know. Okay, precede, that they have known each other since childhood. The state of knowing each other started in the past and continues up to the present. Now, the second, that is tense, is the present perfect continuous. Present perfect continuous here is still different from present, perfect simple, which is here, that is have or has plus past participle. Here, we the present perfect continuous, we have, let's say, have been or has been plus ing, present participle, that's ing verb. Okay, we used, of course, to emphasize here the duration or continuity of an ongoing action from the past to the present. So here in the action is still continuous. Okay, it's still continuous. For example, here, I have been studying English for 2 years. I have been studying. So this means I have started studying, let's say, 2 years ago, and I am still, let's say, continuous in studying, English. So this is the action here of studying English, started in the past and continues up to the present. So it highlights the duration of the study. I have been studying. Again, remember, have been ing form. The second example here, she has been working, okay, here since last year. She has been working. Of course, she is the subject, and which is singular here, followed by has been. Then, we have after been working the ing form. And the action indicates that, the working started in the past and is still continuous. It emphasizes the continuity of the work, since last year. Key differences now and additional examples. Now, the present perfect tense often focuses on completed actions with present relevance, while the present perfect continuous tense emphasizes ongoing or continuous actions. Okay, that is the difference between that is present perfect and present perfect continuous, and sometimes called, present perfect simple, okay, and present perfect continuous. There is another difference, okay, which is here sometimes there are verbs generally are known as stative verbs or non-continuous verbs. These verbs generally are not used in the continuous tenses or in the progressive tenses. They are not used, let's say, in present continuous or present perfect continuous or past continuous tenses in general. These verbs are not used. They are non-continuous verbs. In this case, they are expressed by the simple present or present perfect. Simple present or present perfect. Okay? But not continuous tenses, either past or present, by the way, but not continuous tenses. Let's say these verbs like know, the verb know that we had an example on. We have, of course, the verbs like love, like, dislike, hate, verbs like belong to, like consist, like seem, want, okay? These are non-continuous verbs, and that's, of course, understand, think. Okay, think, not mental activity. No, think means that is believe. Okay, these verbs are not followed by ing. So they are not used in the continuous tenses. In this case, we use them in the what? In simple tenses, either simple present or present perfect simple or simple past as well. So this is one of the differences. Example of present perfect, he has written 3 books, okay, focuses here on the completed action of writing books with relevance to the present. So he has written 3 books so far, that's it. Example of present perfect continuous, she has been painting all morning, or she has been writing all morning, okay? So emphasizing the ongoing action of painting from the past to the present. Contextual cues, let's say sometimes we have certain cues, certain words, marks that say time markers that indicate these tenses, that's present perfect or present perfect continuous. Mainly we talk about since for. Since for, already, yet, never, recently, lately, so far, okay? Now, with regard to since for, you need to differentiate, by the way. Since is used for point of time, while for is used for period of time. What's the difference between point of time? Point of time means exact time, I mean. So we can say since yesterday, since last week, since 1999, since 2020, for example, since 8 o'clock, okay? Since, morning. But for duration of time, okay, it's not specific duration or period of time. I mean, for example, here for 2 days, for 2 hours, for 3 years, for a long time. So for is not specific time, but since is used with specific time. So for example, we have I have lived here since 2010. I have lived here since 2010 indicates the duration of living here from 2010 or 2010 until now. Adverbs like always, often, just, still, ever, never, okay, also used to indicate this tense. Example, they have just arrived. We can use they have just arrived. Also, we can use yet with the negative form or questions. Indicates, of course, the recent completion of the action of arriving. By understanding the formation, usage, and contextual cues of the present perfect and perfect continuous, okay, present perfect continuous tenses, learners can effectively communicate actions or states that have started in the past and have relevance to the present, as well as actions with ongoing duration or continuity. And another that is another point which is here or topic that is exploring past perfect and past perfect continuous tenses. The first one is when we talk about past perfect tense. Okay, in the first topic we discussed present and present perfect, present continuous, perfect continuous. Now here past perfect and past perfect continuous. Here we of course the formation, that's the rule. We use of course the subject plus had plus past participle. Okay, subject no matter what the subject is, because had is for both singular forms and plural forms. So I, we, you, they, have, he, she, it, had. Okay. So plus past participle of the verb. This is as verb 3. Usage now used for actions completed before a specific point in the time. That is, an action, okay, finished, let's say completed, before a start, starting, before starting another, action. So it indicates sequence of events, mainly with, of course, after or before. Or used sometimes with by certain time this action, was complete, let's say. Let's see, here what, for example, here, he had already left when I arrived. He had already left when I arrived. We have here when I arrived, and we have already here. Of course, this indicates that is we use had plus past participle, which is left, past participle of leave. The action of leaving occurred before the arrival, indicating a sequence of events. Another also we can use here before or after. We can say they had finished dinner before the guests arrived. Look at this. They had finished dinner before the guests arrived. So they had finished. This, occurred or happened earlier, which is before the guest arrived. Okay. Also, I can use after here. The same sentence I can use after instead of using before. We can say after they had finished dinner, they or the guests arrived. After they had finished the dinner, the guests arrived. Okay. Here the completion of dinner happened before another past events. The arrival, that is to say, of guests. Past perfect continuous. Now, when we talk about continuous past perfect, here also the same, the differences between continuous tenses and perfect tense, is also the same, using, that is, the non-continuous verbs here, of course, are not used in past perfect tense. But let's see what's the formation of this. Of course, it's formed through, that is using the subject in addition plus had been plus present participle, that's ing form. So we can say, I had been leaving, or I had been studying English, let's say for 2 hours since, etc. So we use what? Had been plus ing. This is to emphasize the duration or continuity of an ongoing action up to a certain point in the past, not to till now. That was, of course, present perfect continuous. But here it was, let's say, it talks about duration or continuity of an action up to a certain point in the past. For example, she had been waiting for hours before he finally called. Look at this. She had been waiting for hours, before he finally called. So we have here 4 hours, and we have before he finally called. That is also simple past. Okay. In this case, we use, of course, had been what? Waiting or ing. And the same thing here, by the way, you put in mind that wait is one of the verbs that preferably used in continuous. Okay, so this is why we said you have to be careful about non-continuous verbs are not used in continuous tenses, like this tense, past perfect continuous. So the ongoing action here of waiting started before a specific past point, and continued until then. That's the past point. Example 2, they had been working together for years before the company went bankrupt. So they had been working together for years before. We have also before, and we have, look at this, also 4 years duration, and we have a specific time before the company went bankrupt. So the continuous action of working together extended for a period in the past. Also the key differences, I told you about one of these key differences between these, that is past perfect and past perfect continuous. Okay, which is the verb and the non-continuous verbs here. But here, let's see now, the past perfect tense indicates completed actions before a specific past point. The past perfect tense indicates completed actions before a specific past tense, while the past perfect continuous tense emphasizes ongoing actions, activities with a focus on their continuous nature. This is, for example, here, that is regarding past perfect, of course. She had read the book before watching the movie. She had read the book before watching the movie indicates the completion of reading book, okay, or the book before another past action. For example, when we talk about before, of course, watching, that is the movie. Another example, past perfect continuous. He had been studying all night before the exam. So he had been studying all night before the exam. Emphasizes the continuous action of studying, leading up to the past events. That is the exam. Contextual cues, also we have also other cues that are used, or time adverbs used in this or these two tenses. Time markers, for example, like before, after, or by the time, or sometimes when, or until. These are used as contextual cues that indicate past and past perfect continuous tense. tenses. Example, of course, she had finished her work before the deadline indicates the completion of work before a specific past point, the deadline. Adverbs already, yet, just, still, ever, never, or for example, also are used. Example, he had just left when I arrived. He had just left when I arrived. When I arrived indicate that the past is, the tense is had left, but with just also we can use it in such sense examples. Of course, here this indicates the recent completion of an action. It's recent, that's close in time, okay? An action before another past events. By understanding the formation, usage, and contextual cues of the past perfect and past perfect continuous tenses, learners, okay, can effectively communicate sequences of events, actions completed before specific past points, and ongoing actions with continuous duration in the past. Now, the third topic here, comparing perfect tenses and recognizing contextual cues. Of course, perfect tenses, that's past and present, of course, perfect tenses and perfect continuous as well, with the key, with the cues used with these tenses. Key differences like present perfect versus present perfect continuous. The present perfect tenses focuses on completed actions with present relevance, while the present perfect continuous tenses emphasize ongoing actions. Example of present perfect: she has finished her work, completion of work with present relevance. Example of present perfect continuous: also she has been working all morning. This is emphasis on ongoing action. Past perfect versus past perfect continuous. The past perfect tense indicates completed actions before a specific past point, while the past perfect continuous tense emphasizes ongoing action with the continuous duration. Example of past perfect, we talked about, for example, he had already eaten before the movie started. Completion of eating before another past action. As I told you here, there's something. How can we tell about if you have a question, let's say in the exam? How can we tell that I use he had already eaten or he has already eaten? Okay, or had been eating, for example. So here in this case, we have before in this sentence and followed by past simple. So before the movie started indicates that the tense here is what? Had already eaten. Had, that is past perfect, not present perfect. We don't say has already eaten with before past simple. Okay, so this is how we differentiate the tense. Example of past perfect continuous now. She had been waiting for hours when he finally arrived. Look at this here as well. We can say she had been waiting for hours when he finally arrived. Also, the same thing regarding why we don't use, if you have a question like this, she has been waiting or she had been waiting. Of course, in this case, we use she has been waiting for hours. Why had? Because we have when followed by finally arrived, when he finally arrived. So when plus past simple and preceded by for. Okay, then that related to perfect tenses. In this case, we use had because we have when finally he finally arrived. Ongoing action leading up to a specific past event or past point, which is when he finally arrived. Okay, this is why we can't use she has been waiting. Okay, why we can't say, for example, she had waited. Okay, because this verb specifically and preferably should be used, in ing form, waiting. Okay, not as let's say perfect tenses. I mean, without ing. Another also contextual cues we talked about, since for and the difference between both of these, specifically, but we can use already, yet, never, recently. Of course, we can use them here. For example, they had already left when I arrived indicates completion before another past event. Adverbs, for example, always, often, just, still, ever, never, Okay, also used as we discussed earlier about, or with these tenses, that is present perfect and even present perfect continuous. He had just finished his homework when the power went out. Recent completion before a past. Now, why we can't say مثلا he had just been finishing, for example? Why? Because finish is one of the non-continuous verbs, and generally we use finish with the simple tenses, simple perfect simple, or even simple past or simple present. Okay, so finish is not used at all, I mean, with continuous tenses. Okay, is not used with continuous tenses. It's only used with what? With perfect simple, or simple tenses. Now, topic 4: narrative and storytelling with perfect tenses. And this is another topic related to the use, let's say, of perfect tenses: present perfect and past perfect. Present perfect to indicate, of course, used to recount experiences or actions with relevance to the present. Okay, either experiences. Sometimes we can talk about accomplishment, by the way, because we sometimes express accomplishments through time, even past time, using present perfect. Okay, so used to recount experiences or actions with relevance to the present. For example, she has lived here for 10 years. Past perfect, of course, used to here to establish a clear sequence of events in the past. So when we talk about present perfect, we use present actions, okay, or present actions with relevance to the present, let's say. And when we talk about past, we talk about clear sequence of events in the past. For example, by the time she arrived, he had already left. By the time, I indicate here the time, and she arrived, the past form. In this case, we use had plus past participle, had already left. Examples of storytelling, storytelling, that is, to speak about a story or to tell story. She had been waiting for hours when he finally called. Okay, she had been waiting for hours when he finally called. And of course, we use had been ing form as the verb wait. And of course, here, for hours when he finally called. Again, we have 4 hours, and we have when he finally called, the simple past verb called. By then, and we have by then, by plus also past. Then indicates past. She had already cooked dinner and cleaned the house. She had already cooked dinner and cleaned the house. By understanding the differences between perfect tenses, recognizing contextual cues such as time markers and adverbs of time, and using these tenses effectively in narrative and storytelling, learners can convey precise temporal relationships and enhance their communication skills in English. To sum up, the lecture explored the following key aspects about perfect tenses in English grammar, specifically the present perfect continuous, past perfect, and past perfect continuous tenses. Here's, of course, we can see certain points, okay, to sum up the whole lecture. Present perfect tense used for actions or states that started in the past and have relevance to the present. Okay, of course, formed with have, has plus past participle. Okay, and present perfect continuous, we can use also the same, emphasizing the duration or continuity of ongoing actions from the past to the present, formed by have, has been plus ing verb. And past perfect tense, that indicates actions completed before a specific point in the past, indicates a sequence of events in the past as well. The formation here formed with had plus past participle. Past perfect continuous, of course, emphasizes the duration or continuity or ongoing actions up to a certain point in the present, okay, in the past, sorry, formed with had been plus ing. Had been ing, again to indicate past simple, okay, past I mean actions. The lecture also discussed key differences between these tenses, such as the formation, usage in narrative, and recognizing contextual cues like time markers and adverbs of time. Activities for teaching and learning these tenses included sentence completion, timeline creation, storytelling, role play scenarios, error correction, interactive quizzes or games, or real life scenario discussions. Overall, the lecture aimed to help learners understand and use perfect tenses effectively in expressing temporal relationships and conveying precise meanings in English sentences and narratives. That's it for today, and that's all for the perfect tenses. Thank you for today. Have a nice time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.